I'm probably going to get shut down for this by a lot of people. But if your focus is on content over trading, you're clearly prioritizing the build-up to sell a service. If your priority is building a platform to sell something, for me, it doesn't make you the top trader.
Everyone just says like, oh, I'm the greatest trader in the world. I'm sure we all know whose tweet I am talking about. But
let's not do that, Maddie.
Like,
let's not do that, Maddie.
Yeah. If you know deep down you can't trade, but you're selling a mentorship and using prop certs as kind of your marketing ploy, then to me that's unethical. But if you said this is a course on how to, sorry Berkay, how to rinse up props and take everything that they have, I would pay thousands and thousands for that.
Yeah. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Trader Talk. Today's episode is very special, and I know that I say this probably every episode, but our guests are just getting better and better. But today's guest is someone who I am very close to, someone who we have been through a lot together, and I'm very excited to have his story on our platform. So, welcome, Kieran!
You've made me fill some big shoes there, I'm telling you. Getting better and better, I'm not sure about that.
No, because I feel like we have, in the small time that we have been like doing trading together, business together, like we've been through some shit.
Yeah, a hell of a lot.
We've seen some shit in this industry. So I feel like we can have a real good conversation.
You're trying to bait me out on some stuff here. I can see the sparks coming already.
I'm like, so here we go. So obviously everyone should know who Kieran is, but for those at home who don't know who you are, who is Kieran?
Okay, so I initially started off as a crypto investor like 6 years ago. Ended up doing my ass, as I think everybody does. Tried to find a way to consistency. I actually fell into FX then because there was more. I think that was kind of the prime time for signal scams and, you know, people.
What era is that? What year?
Like 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then like mentorships and stuff. I ended up signing up, I'm ashamed to say, I signed up to about 3 or 4 different signal scams. Got scammed on every single one. Signed up with BD Swiss multiple times. And then I found Tom Dante, learned how to trade, and here we are today.
I love that. So you were actually the person who introduced me to Tom Dante. I had no idea who this man was.
Oh God, this is going to become another... Every podcast I go on, I end up talking about Tom Dante for the whole time.
Because Tom knows himself. Tom knows Kieran is...
Number one fan
of Tom Dante. And now... Obviously, we've built a relationship with Tom Dante, which obviously has come through you, which I think is absolutely amazing, because he's probably one of the greatest traders I've ever come across, and obviously that is thanks to you. How did you come across him, and like what was that whole journey like for you? Because obviously that is completely different to how I came in the industry, which is kind of refreshing. So talk us through that whole experience.
Yeah. So the thing with Tom, he's not only a great trader, but he's a fantastic educator, and I think that's a whole different sort of ball game, you know, because I've seen plenty of great traders who can't transfer those skills over to anybody else, and I've seen, you know, poor traders be able to actually talk well, get a room full of people and make it sound like, or at least they can educate, and when they educate the basics, you know, you can kind of get away with it. But when you're looking at intricate details and things that not your everyday average trader looks at, and you can explain them off the cuff with such precision and detail, that it kind of stands out to me. And so, like I say, after I was getting involved in different signal scams and doing some shoddy courses, I actually found your best friend, Sam Kavanagh, and I started to learn. He was kind of
He likes me now.
Yeah, he likes you now. I ended up joining KB Trading, learned some basic stuff from him, took it all on board, and then he started learning from Tom Dante, and he kind of enlightened me, and then me and one of my friends went halves on Tom Dante's course and never looked back.
You know what, I didn't actually realise, obviously I knew Sam and Tom had that connection, but I didn't know it was through Sam that you found out about Tom.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because Sam, I think he was also going through a big period of growth in his own trading and business and career and stuff, and he was also looking for that next level of educator
Okay,
or mentor.
yeah.
Again, like I say, somebody who can actually teach and trade. And as soon as the person I respected, which was Sam, looked at Tom and respected Tom, I then followed suit and, did the same.
Okay, that makes sense. How did you come across Sam back then?
His YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he started vlogging the beginning of lockdown. So I was probably 2 years into my journey at that point, but probably a year with FX. So I was still trying to figure things out. And then, on comes Sam, this young guy, and he looked like he was killing it. So I was just enamored by that.
I feel like, so I kind of came into the industry more through like the social media gurus. Whereas I feel like if I could go back now, I 100% would just go to YouTube, because I feel that's where you find the actual traders, isn't it really? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, more of like the legit ones. Social media, I feel like it's very heavy marketing, whereas YouTube isn't as markety. Does that make sense?
I think it all depends on who you're talking about. There's not one.
No names.
So I'm not gonna mention names. But from my experience, some of the best traders. We was having a conversation about this earlier, and I was saying some of the best traders I've ever met, they don't have many people skills, or they're introverts by nature, or they just don't care to build a social platform.
Yeah.
And that's the truth behind the matter. You could have somebody screaming from the rooftops how good of a trader they are, but if your focus is building content as opposed to developing your edge, and I'm probably going to get shut down for this by a lot of people, but if your focus is on content over trading, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you're clearly prioritizing the build up to sell a service, which again, I have no problem with. I think mentors are good. Again, somebody who can trade and teach. But if your priority is building a platform to sell something, for me, it doesn't make you the top trader, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I personally wouldn't start with YouTube because it's a minefield.
That is true.
But
So if you've got a strategy that is working very well for you, and you think, others can benefit from it as well as, I don't know, because a lot of people do feel like they can teach people things and be of a person of not influence, I'd say, but like a mentor, guide. Would you still think that is not like, I don't know, someone's agenda when it comes to being an educator, rather than just saying, all right, cool, how about I just sit at home and just take all profits on myself? I mean, at the end of the day, having a group of traders who just take your strategy. I mean, it's not really like signal selling. I mean, like strategy-wise, they're not actually taking your money.
I'm a massive proponent of education groups. I probably made it sound like I'm not.
That's
Education.
I think if you can trade and you can show proof of being able to trade, and you can teach, I don't see an issue with teaching people how to trade.
Okay.
But I think there needs to be a lot more transparency in that industry. And I know what it's like. You do have free time. You can teach traders. I don't personally buy the higher narrative of, I just want to help people. We're in a selfish industry. Trading is taking money off the other person on the other side of the trade, right? So I don't buy into that narrative of, I was put on the planet to help somebody learn how to trade. I think it's bollocks. I think you want to sell a course to make more money. Got no problem. I have no problem with that. I think if you've got the knowledge and you've got the skills to teach, be my guest. But you can't duck and hide when somebody says, what proof do you have that you can actually trade?
So someone with a reputable experience of like a track record of a lot of wins, would you deem him as a good trader then?
It depends on the record. So, this is where I get into my kind of analysis of people's records. But like, for what I do, I work with DarwinX, I run my own investment firm. I vet a lot of traders and I see a lot of traders' records. And there's ones on the face of it that look fantastic, but actually when you dive into kind of the statistics, people don't really look at like your value at risk, like stuff like that, which tells you how much risk exposure you have in your strategy and the market at any given time. Not like drawdown. Drawdown's like a back-looking metric where you say, okay, this trader historically has gone 20% into drawdown. So if you put £10,000 in, you lose 2,000, but then it might continue to go up. There's kind of a second element to that, and it's how much value is at risk at any given time for a trader. So the S&P is 6.5%, right? So if you're trading and you're making 200% a month, but your value at risk is 90%, it's a very high likelihood that trader's going to blow up. But if you look at a record and they've got lucky for 3 or 4 months, you might be like, this guy's cracked the source code, he knows everything, he's done 600%, but he's risking everything to get that. So you have to kind of deep dive into the next level of that. And for me, I always interview the traders anyway. I wouldn't just take a track record at face value of being, you're worthy of managing 5 million, 10 million. I'd want to know the person. I'd want to see their story corroborates with how they trade and stuff. Okay. So it's a lot deeper than that. But back to your original question, should they be able to teach? I think, a track record is the least that you can show if you're going to say, I will turn you into a profitable trader, because you need to know if you're going to be a profitable trader. What on earth is that noise? No. You need to know, right, if the person who is teaching you is actually doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you may as well go read a book or learn from somebody else. So.
Would you class prop firm payout certificates as a track record?
No. I think, and again, we was talking about this earlier, weren't we? So I think prop trading is its own subset of trading. I don't think it's a representation or a true reflection on a trader's ability, because if you're managing personal capital or you have external investment, you're never going to have the same rules and limits that you would with a prop firm, i.e. your max daily drawdown, your overall drawdown. For example, you might be somebody who builds a position over months and your drawdown goes above 5% at any given time. You'd lose your account in a prop, whereas you wouldn't with external investment. Yeah. So I don't see it as, I'm sure you're going to ask some questions off the back of this, but I think there's some interesting things that we can go into.
I mean, it makes sense. I agree. I don't think prop certificates should be used as a form of marketing for people to sell courses. And that, again, is only because I've worked in the industry for over a year now. Obviously, I've had access to a lot of people like on the back end of things. So I understand how the back end now works. And I understand that it is very easy for people to make shitloads of money from props without really knowing how to trade. And I think it's a very clever marketing tool for these gurus, but I think it is very dangerous for people that are coming into the industry, seeing these people making hundreds of thousands, thinking that they're just doing it by buying an account and trading it properly and getting an amazing payout, when realistically we know that they're just full put in the account, probably buying like 10 challenges at a time, probably reverse trading, most of them, and then just posting one big payout that they get from one prop firm, which obviously in itself, the more that I'm talking about this now, I'm like, it's actually fraud, because it's not actually a true reality of like what you've actually done. But no one is going to say this online. But people obviously using the prop certificates as like, look at me, I make a shitload of money from prop firms, come and join my course and I'm going to teach you how to do this. I feel like it's very detrimental for the entire industry.
And I mean, I told you this earlier, it's like, I think props are fantastic for cash flow. Whereas if you want to grow as a trader, you need to think long-term, like external investment, growing your own pot capital, because you just never know what's going to happen, and you need as many avenues as you can possibly get to be able to, if you still want to be a trader in 10, 15 years time, you need to put plans now to have that capital then. But going back to the education side of things, if you're using prop certificates and payout certificates as being kind of come and learn from me, I mean, I've made money from prop firms. I've traded prop for 3 years, but I would still buy somebody's course if they said, I know how to make £1 million from prop in a year, but I'm not a great trader. I would buy your course because I can't make $1 million from prop in a year, but I can trade. But if somebody's the other side of that who can't necessarily trade long term, which most people can't, but they know how to gamify props, I'm all in. But what in fact they do is they advertise themselves as knowing how to trade and then use the prop certificates and the payouts as the marketing. And for me, it's kind of, like you say, it's a little bit, maybe not fraudulent, but it's a bit unethical. If you know deep down you can't trade, but you're selling a mentorship and using prop certs as kind of your marketing ploy, then to me that's unethical. But if you said this is a course on how to, sorry Berkay, how to rinse up props and take everything that they have, I would pay thousands and thousands for that.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You know, so that, and that's kind of my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about this on the way here, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense.
We should have recorded that
We should
conversation,
have
didn't we?
I mean, some things probably not. But like, it's true, because if people, like, everyone knows how I am just always talking about the fact of just being real. Like, if that's what you're doing, fucking rate it. Like, if you're making hundreds of thousands.
Oh yeah, no one's ever gonna be like, oh, he's a millionaire, but he did it that way, so it's not. Who cares? The money's in your bank.
He said
but-
that. He said exactly what he's done. So he's not defrauding anyone. He's not doing anything unethical, because he said it how it is. And people want to make money, so people are going to be like, fuck it, let's do it. Do you know what I mean? But everyone, like you say, everyone just says like, oh, I'm the fucking greatest trader in the world. I'm sure we all know whose tweet I am talking about. But
Let's not do that, Maddie.
like,
Let's not do that, Maddie.
Yeah, please.
but it's true, because this is what they do. Like, this is literally what they do. And yeah, it just annoys me.
I think the best thing that was introduced, I don't know if all props do it, but is the on the payout certificates, the money in, money out.
Oh, really?
Have you never
I've
seen
never
them?
seen that.
That's a solid representation of like transparency on the props behalf,
I was going to
because
say that would ruin some people.
exactly the point. So for example, you might have done 100 grand in payouts, but if you've put 90 grand in, you've made an ROI of 10%. But if you've put 1 grand in and made 10 grand, that's an ROI of 1,000%, you know.
Yeah.
So who would you rather learn from? I know who I'd rather learn from,
Yeah.
because I don't want to go and plough 90 bags into a prop firm and hope that I can
Hope for
make
the best.
10% on that. I'd
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
put it
yeah.
in the S&P or buy a house or something, you know.
Literally. But it's sad, because that is what most of the industry is right now. It's just, I think it is, obviously, it's the industry that we're in, and it's not something that we're going to change. It's just something that we have to do better from, and not be like all these people online. But what is your stance on prop firms for new traders? Do you think that they are beneficial for new traders, or would you advise people that are have more experience in the markets to get into props?
When you say new traders, how new are we talking?
So like you've done a course, you're ready to kind of
So they've got
start
knowledge
trading
on
a
how
little
to
bit.
execute
Yeah,
a
yeah,
position.
You've just
and
completed baby pips.
I personally, baby pips.
If you just completed
shout out to baby pips right
no,
now.
seriously, baby pips is
Baby
the best
pips
thing
is gold.
ever.
Yeah. I would say I would prefer a newer trader to try a small account with a prop firm than just bung £1,000 into a broker, because there's more chance on the trader's side of things, there's more chance that they're going to make a mistake due to lack of experience or knowledge, and they're going to oversize or over risk or get margin called, and they lose that whole £1,000.
Yeah.
You might go with a prop firm, get a 10k account, it might put you back 30, 40 quid, 50 quid. And it's £50 invested, which you might, and let's face it, a newer trader's probably not going to pass.
Yeah.
Or at least if they pass, they're probably not going to pass phase 2. And if they pass phase 2, at least they're probably not going to make a payout, because the consistency is not going to be there. But at least it teaches them, actually, I'm trading with 10 grand rather than £1,000. So I could make money, so I need to be more disciplined. So I would always advocate, I just wouldn't go, spunking up 400k accounts, spending 2 grand a pop at some firms, and
Yeah.
It could also be disheartening if you go with really shady firms that disappear next month, and you've put thousands into it, and then all of a sudden you might be a month or 2 months into your journey, and you go, "Fuck this, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore." So you've got to be really selective, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think as well, like for us, for example, we offer a 5k account for like what, $20. So realistically, if you're going to be coming into the industry as a new trader, you're probably not even going to have 5k of capital of your own personal funds to open an account with. So
And you won't be aware of actually you need to manage risk. Whereas having those drawdown limits in place, this is where it's beneficial, because you're teaching traders who don't have that experience that I actually need to manage risk. It's in my best interest. It teaches them that you've got to do it regardless.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think as well, as a new trader coming in, let's say for example you have 5k life runs, you're going to be thinking of the best way to flip this to 100k by next year.
I still do that now.
Whereas realistically, like, that's not real trading. So I think using a prop account instead, like risking $20 for 5k of capital, one is, like you say, it's going to teach you risk management because you've got these buffers in place that you can't lose a certain amount. But also it will kind of open you up to the fact of like what 5k can do for you, and 5k that's not really any risk of yours other than $20, which is like what, £15 for a UK trader. So I think props always make sense for new traders.
But then there's the whole aspect of having a demo account and backtesting is what you should be doing as a new trader, right? But then don't you feel like if you have a demo account and do you believe in the whole backtesting concept?
Depends in what context. So if you this is my view on backtesting, right? If you say, here's my strategy, go and backtest it, I could do it. I'm still going to have my own cognitive bias. I'm still going to look at things and imagine something was there and it wasn't. So backtesting is never going to be 100% accurate. So I think forward testing when you feel the raw emotion in the moment is much, much better. But I would prefer to spend my time, as opposed to looking through the charts and going, oh, there was a setup there, I should have taken it. I'd rather log the statistics and the data behind that so that I know, rather than having to look through charts and see my perspective, because as much as you're going to try and negate it, you're always going to have a bias when you look at the charts, just period fact. If I look at a database that says 70% of the time this might happen, for me, that's enough. That's my backtesting done. And I think a lot of people would benefit having that, as opposed to just going, I need to play through the charts, bar replay, see what happens here, see what happens there. I don't think you get as much benefit out of it as people necessarily think.
So you think backtesting is a very important element? I'm speaking as a prop trader, right? Because you put in, let's say, £40 into an account, you passed, now you're on the funded phase. Mentally, you're thinking, all right, I can actually make money. But when on a demo account, you're like, well, it happens, fuck it happens, you know what I mean? You're just playing around with it. So do you think backtesting your demo account is very important to sort of real life performance? Because mindset changes.
I think it's good to learn how to actually execute, learning the platforms, learning to put stop in, target, enter. I mean, MetaTrader is so basic. Like these newer platforms, like C-Trader is quite tough. It's my favorite platform, but you have to learn the nuances of it. And that's what I think demo trading and backtesting is for. Again, I'll probably get shut down for this because I don't agree with the norm, but I don't think you're going to get any real value from demo trading for a long period of time. Because you're falsifying it, right? Imagine you're a heart surgeon. I use heart surgeon things for everything. But imagine you're a heart surgeon and you've practiced for 6 months, a year, however long it is, with a fake patient on the table, cutting them apart, right? The first time you get that live patient where they go, this person's life is on the line, you think you're going to be cutting into them the same way you cut into a doll. No way. You're always going to have that overwhelm of, oh God, actually I need to fit. And then you're going to see things that weren't there on the dolls and the dummies, and you're going to feel things that weren't. So I think the quicker you can get, again, this probably gets shut down, but the quicker you can get away from demo and backtesting, the better. But you have to have done enough to have an edge that you can actually forward test.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Obviously, I think the whole world knows I've never backtested a day in my life. Like, nice. Never. But I have forward tested for the last 9 years, lost shitloads of money, built some serious fucking grit that no one can ever tell me shit. And I feel like that rewards me better now than any backtesting or demo trading I ever could have done. Like,
and you remember the pain, don't you? Yeah.
Character building, that's real.
Yeah.
That is real. But backtesting, demo trading, that is, you can't build any type of character. You can't build any type of grit or resilience from that. But losing shitloads of money forward testing, building your own edge.
We're not advocating losing shitloads of money.
We're not advocating this. We're not advocating this. But as a trader, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to lose some money to be able to deal with the emotional turmoil that trading will bring. And I just don't think that is ever spoken about enough, because everyone's like, backtest, demo. And it's like, why are you babying people? People need to throw themselves into the market and have a few breakdowns on the way. Like, that is the real reality of trading.
I also think when there's pain there, you tend to focus a lot better, and you tend to pick patterns up a lot better. Because for example, let's say you're running through, you go, I've got an hour of backtesting. You might look through, a month's worth of data, and you might pick up a few setups. The losers might all have something in common, and what you're doing, instead of processing it, looking at and analysing, you're moving on to the next one. Okay, that one was a loss, I'll get on to the next one. It's all a probabilities game. When it's live and you feel the pain of losing money, it might not be a lot of money, but there's still more pain there than paper trading on TradingView, you remember the losses that happened. You remember it in real time. Some of my biggest losses, I remember them. I remember the candles. Yeah. I remember the pans. Yeah. And then when you remember that, you remember patterns between trades where you go, oh, actually, when this has happened, or I've seen this before, usually that results in a loss. You can investigate that. You don't get that in backtesting.
Yeah, and I think that is also paired with the emotional side of it. So when you see a certain pattern or a certain candlestick, you remember that emotion that you felt. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's anything stronger in terms of like experience and learning anything than that emotional element of the feeling the pain of knowing that setup caused you to lose a lot of money.
Caused a few grey hairs.
Yeah, exactly.
But then is there a specific number of like percentage-wise you should go into the market with in terms of your actual money? Like, would you put a specific percentage on, like, let's say I've got £1,000 to my name, nothing else. Mm-hmm. I want to trade. What percent? Do I put my whole 1,000 in? Or would you say just put 10%?
Yeah, I would always say, this was something that was drilled into me when I first started by Tom, is never put more than 10% of your net worth or trading capital into a broker or any trading platform. Because if they go down, you've lost 100%. So get enough leverage. The FCA makes this more difficult now because we're restricted to 30-1 if you're trading with a regulated broker. But always keep like 10% and try and get enough leverage that you can trade as if it's, let's say you put 10 grand in, but your actual pot of capital is 100K. You only want to risk 10% so that if the worst does happen, but in terms of like, if you're coming in with £1,000, I'd say you need to focus for a couple of years on and pay to learn. And, it's not, people think in the beginning, paying something is taking a step back. Because you go, I've got £1,000. How do I get from 1,000 to 100,000? Yeah. Every penny I spend is a step back on that scale. But actually, it's like more like an elastic band. You might spend that grand, but you might get pinged and springboarded up the ladder. So I'd always say, if you're new, focus on getting a mentor with the right accreditation.
Yeah, but then I think again that just ties in with the whole. If you have got £1,000, if you're risking 10% or even 5% of that. Just use that on a prop firm account and just learn that way rather than putting that into a live account, risking it. You can just leverage that through prop firms, which I think that is why prop firms are so amazing, because you don't need a lot of capital.
It's been a nice
on me.
You don't need a lot of capital to trade a lot of capital, which I think is just a game changer over the last few years, I think, because obviously when we came into the industry, it was like
BD Swiss all the way.
Hugo's Way. Hugo's Way was my go-to. I remember the way you had to deposit money into Hugo's Way, you had to go through something called Instacoins and then transfer that to Hugo's Way. Like, it was complicated.
Yeah.
People came into the industry
that's all
now
off
and had
the
to do
books sort of stuff. That is, isn't it? Yeah.
That was offshore. You never heard of Hugo's Way?
A bookie ass broker from back in the day. If they're still around, I'm not slandering, I promise.
They are. They're still around.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
we need to cut that then.
Yeah. They're unregulated, not legal there.
They're coming after you.
But yeah, that was the only way that you could day trade crypto back then. So it had to be through a broker, but obviously all crypto brokers at that point were unregulated because it was so new.
Oh yeah, even Coinbase was.
Yeah, exactly. So Hugo's Way was like the go-to because I started day trading crypto first. But even when I started trading FX, I still used Hugo's Way. I remember the first 2 bags that I put into an account was in Hugo's Way. But that was the stupidest thing ever. I put in 2 bags, that was all I had, into an unregulated offshore broker who sometimes would just turn the market off when you're trading crypto, open it back up again hours later, and there's a massive gap, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like, that is how we started in this industry. So I feel like people are just so spoilt now. Like, you come into it, you've got these prop firms offering racks for you to trade. We had to use our own capital and struggle through the trenches.
Yeah, and it makes you more appreciative now. Like, I mean, I'm the first to complain about poor trading conditions because I hate it. And the thing is with a broker, you can take your money out and you can go and get another broker. So like you can kind of not stand for it a little bit more. Whereas when you're with a prop, you're kind of like locked in because you pay the money, you get the account. So like trading conditions for me is a huge thing. But I always remember, what does this give me that I didn't have 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And so like I see people in Discords and stuff, and they're like, I see it in the Darwinex Discord and just like, you know, people complaining about gaps and stuff. And I'm like, nobody's out to get you here. This is what the market does. Like, try being in an unregged broker when they rug it or the floor goes through or they give you revised slippage, any of these things. You don't get that hassle with a prop.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. Yeah, I have to remind myself of that sometimes because I do expect a lot.
I know, yeah. We want perfect conditions.
Yeah.
But then it also goes back to the days of like FTMO, when all we had was FTMO. That was hard. You had to pass within 30 days. You couldn't trade news. Like,
Thought it was a scam.
At all. You thought it was a scam because you're like, why would these people offer me such huge capital just because I couldn't trade? Like, it didn't make any sense. But there were so many rules. You had to trade for 10 days. So many different elements to FTMO that when I see people online complaining now, I'm like,
you've got it better than
don't know
anybody's
how
ever had
easy
it.
you've
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. 100%.
It's insane. Even the profit target, I think FTMO still is 10%, isn't it?
Yeah, they've never. I think the only thing they've changed is the minimum days
daily,
and stuff.
yeah. But yeah, most firms are 8% to pass phase one. FTMO, you have to make that 10%. And when it was within 30 days, that was insane.
I actually preferred the 30 days thing.
Really?
Yeah, because you could get to the end of the month and you might be down 4 or 5k.
Yeah,
and you just go,
you could
fuck
reset.
it, I'm slinging the rest of the account, and you save yourself just on the last day.
True.
But that shows how now it's harder to do that, and you actually have to know how to trade to get your way out of it. Because there was a few times where I would sling it on the last trading day of the month, and I'd be like, right, it's either all or nothing here, so go all in. And luckily, I've only got burned doing that once. The rest of the times, it always worked out. So I just got a free retry and a free retry. And I actually think it did no benefit to me. It did no benefit to the prop. It probably would have been better if I'd have lost the account, rebought it, and learned my lesson.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I used to prefer that rule.
Yeah.
I know it's a get out of jail free.
Even, that's just made me think as well, even the pricing of prop firms now, like I just said, we offer a 5k account for $20. FTMO, and we do discounts all the time. FTMO, have they ever done it? Like, never. I've never seen a discount. I actually remember when they bought out that advent calendar thing, and there was like 10% and 20% discounts, and everyone was going crazy because they're like, oh my gosh, FTMO is offering discounts. This is all new. Like, people are so spoiled now, and they still complain.
Yeah, but you'll never stop that. You'll never stop people complaining.
It's insane. It's actually crazy. So what does Kieran do now? Like, where are you at now with your journey?
So I took a huge step back from kind of social media and just the general industry because I was getting fed up of how toxic things were. And I just, even though no one was toxic to me, I just couldn't be bothered to be around it. I'm a positive person. I love people who bring each other up, not in like a weird way, but like
Happy dancing.
I come away from a conversation happier when I know that the other person's not going to go and slag you off or tell you secrets to somebody else. Yeah. And I feel like that is just so hard to find in this industry specifically. And so I just decided to distance myself away from everything, focus on my trading, because I don't care how long you've been doing it for. I think you can always, like, you've got your path, and sometimes you can stray, and you just have to, at the earliest chance you can get, you need to pull yourself back onto the path. And I found myself doing it quite a lot. So like, you know, I might have took a loser, I might have been on a bad streak, and then I go on Twitter and I see Tom, Dick and Harry all winning, but actually they're not winning. They might have took 10 losses that day and posted their one winner, for example. But it still creeps into your mind, going, oh, fuck's, like, what, why me? And I just thought I need to get rid of this. So I took a huge step back. I started working with Darwinex, helping them with community management, social media stuff and copywriting. So I do that kind of like day-to-day stuff. I have my own investment fund I can't say investment fund. investment firm for high net worth clients. I'm going to be lynched by the FCA if they watch if you don't cut that out. I got my own investment firm for high net worth clients and institutional investors. As part of that, like I was saying earlier, I vet traders, so I take on records, and then I represent them to hedge funds across the world. I kind of just make the connection, and then I do my due diligence, say, listen, I've got this trader from XYZ, this is their record, do you want to speak to them? Connect them, and then it kind of goes under the funds restriction or regulation, I guess, so that I have zero risk involved in that, really. And then I do a few other little bits on the side, but nothing interesting enough. On the side. Yeah, nothing interesting enough to go into. But I also consult and sit kind of on the board for other investment firms and give them advice and stuff. Mainly like regulatory issues and helping them grow their assets under management and investor base.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting. You know what? I always see you as like the data guy, like Excel spreadsheets for days. And anytime we have a conversation, you talk to me about things and I'm just like, what? Because you just
make me sound like a nerd.
No, you are, like, on some level you are. When it comes to like numbers and data, like, you just know like what to do. And I'm like, even trying to build an Excel spreadsheet, I'm like what is even happening here? Like, I don't know what the first thing to do. So when I think of you, I always think data and numbers.
No.
And like just Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of thing. Like, what got you into like that kind of thing? Because I feel like that is it is a geeky thing. Like, it's very smart, and like it's something that I wish I could understand on a deeper level, but my brain just can't process that much. Like, what got you into that kind of stuff?
It was kind of by accident, really. I had a job as a support consultant for a tech firm in Birmingham. I didn't like the job, so I left, and then I ended up going back probably 6 months later, and they said, we've got this other job for you. It's kind of a new role. It was kind of a role that was split by loads of people, but they said, we actually want to make it its own role. And it was to be something called a data conversion consultant. So basically what I would do is I would take data sets from one system, reformat it, check it, make sure there's no errors, put it into another system. So, and I did that for a few years. I can't remember exactly how long, maybe 3 years. And because of that, I was handling data every day. And it was, I had to look at like regulatory stuff like GDPR. Like I had on my laptop like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lines of data on a single file. Yeah. And I had hundreds of single files, so it was a huge responsibility. And I was the only person in the business who did it. Wow. So it was kind of like, it was high pressure, but it wasn't high pressure, if that makes sense. Like, the day-to-day role was chilling. Like, it was a really easy role in terms of like, there's no pressure, but the pressure, if I lost my laptop, again, I'd have been lynched. Yeah. So that's kind of how I fell into learning Excel. It was kind of by accident, but I then left there when I went full-time trading in September 2021, and I started doing that third party for them. So instead of working for them, I still did it for some of their clients, but their clients would pay me instead. So when the data got to my old firm, it was already ready for them. So, and I did that for probably a year. I mean, if they messaged me now and they were like, we've got a client, I could pick it up and do it now. But, that's how I got into it.
I find it so interesting.
It is. I find it really fun. I know it sounds geeky and nerdy. Like, it is, but sit me down with a huge data set and give me some issues, and I'll.
The excitement on his face.
Literally, but that's why I asked, because every time you talk about it, I can tell like this is your shit. Like, you know what you're talking about. Even in terms of like your trading strategy, I know that is heavy data based. And you can just see it in your eyes, like there's like a sparkle in your eye. When you're talking about data, you're like you can't wait to show people, because you're like, look at this, and I'm like, that's fucking amazing, but I've got no fucking idea what you're doing.
It's finding patterns that aren't quite visible to the human eye, because you're looking at. I always say data is kind of the reason behind something happening. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or it's kind of like the reason why something happened. And usually when you find a pattern here, you find a pattern here. And that's kind of, for the longest time I didn't do it. I've been a discretionary trader. I mean, I've dabbled with EAs and robots and stuff, and I've got a small coding experience, but nothing to make my own profitable EA. But which is only recent, I've changed my whole system to be fully data driven with just discretionary entries and exits. So that's all I use my discretion for. It's been the easiest transition. Like I don't feel any pressure when I trade now, because I'm like, I put the pressure on the data. I'm like, if I've done the data right, then it should be all good. So I don't feel any stress there. Whereas that, as a discretionary trader, you're always thinking, is this the right time? Is this the right area? Should I be? No matter how much testing you've done, you're always gonna, not second guess yourself, but there's always gonna be the question. Whereas I'm like, if I lose, the data was still right. So it's fact, it is what it is sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it's just fascinating. Like when you show me Excel sheets, I'm like, this is lit.
I mean, I gotta plug someone. There's a company called Edgeful, and they've done bits because they've basically, data analysis and like extraction, especially from markets, is so difficult, because you would literally have to sit tick by tick and look at what's happening, write it down, hope you don't get any errors, and kind of build a database, which would take years and years to do.
Yeah.
Whereas Edgeful built reports that pull it through like an API and presents it to you straight away. So what I did is pull that and build my own data matrix off of their data, so that I've got it even more instant, and so it's like built by me.
Right.
What did he do?
Man's breakdancing.
That was so funny. You just said data matrix, and I'm just like in the back.
He went,
I was just like, matrix, bro.
We could continue talking for days, but we're going to leave it there and leave the rest for part 2. So make sure you come back next week to hear the rest of this conversation.